The jewelry box of Catherine, Princess of Wales, has been a subject of endless fascination and debate. On one side, we see accessible high street earrings for just £18. On the other, historic Cartier masterpieces from the royal vaults. At first glance, this might seem like a simple fashion trend or an attempt to appear relatable. However, for over a decade, Catherine has used jewelry as a distinct language, ranging from bold red carpet statements to quiet, deeply personal gestures. Today, I want to trace this thread with you. Why, in some instances, she chooses costume jewelry, while in others, she brings back to life treasures that haven't seen the light of day for decades. This isn't just a question of price. It's a story of how jewelry helps Catherine speak volumes when words are simply unnecessary. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. Let's go back to February 19, 2023. Catherine and Prince William arrived at the BAFTA Film Awards, their first time walking that particular red carpet together in 3 years. She looked wonderfully elegant in a white shoulder Alexander McQueen gown. You might have recognized that dress, actually. She had worn it to the very same event back in 2019, though by 2023, the shoulder detailing was updated, and she added a pair of striking black opera gloves. But it was her choice of jewelry that really caught everyone's attention. Instead of reaching into the royal vaults for historic diamonds, she wore a pair of oversized Zara earrings made of base metal. They were designed as 3 gathered flowers with rhinestone appliques and dangling petals, and they cost exactly £17.99. By that Sunday evening, they were completely sold out on the British Zara website. Here is the truly fascinating contrast. When she wore that exact same white dress in 2019, she paired it with beautiful diamond earrings that once belonged to Princess Diana, as well as the Queen Mother's diamond quatrefoil bracelet, a large, flexible piece with an intricate diamond pattern. 4 years later, with the very same gown, she chose high street fashion jewelry. The palace never gave an official reason for this shift, leaving us with just this visual fact. It makes you wonder what kind of message she was quietly sending, swapping priceless royal diamonds for something anyone could buy on a weekend shopping trip. Fast forward exactly 3 years to February 22, 2026, on the very same BAFTA red carpet. If 2023 was the year of high street metal, 2026 was the year of pure, dazzling brilliance. This time, Catherine stepped out wearing 2 magnificent historical pieces from the royal collection. First, she wore the Greville chandelier earrings. These aren't just any earrings. They are a masterpiece created by Cartier in London for Margaret Greville. They weren't even made all at once. Cartier crafted them in stages between 1918 and 1929, starting with a simpler diamond pendant and gradually adding more stones, including pear-shaped drops and diamonds cut in baguette, baton, emerald, half-moon, trapeze, and square shapes. After Margaret Greville passed away in 1942, they went to the future Queen Mother, who then gave them to Princess Elizabeth as a wedding gift in 1947. Catherine first wore them in June 2023 at a royal wedding banquet in Amman, Jordan, and they are officially recorded as a loan from King Charles III. To complete the evening look, she wore Queen Mary's diamond choker as a bracelet. It is a stunning geometric piece from the 1920s with a distinct Art Deco design. Queen Mary originally wore it as a choker, and later it was worn as a bracelet by the Queen Mother, famously appearing in her 75th birthday portraits in 1975, though she had worn it before then too. After passing to Queen Elizabeth II, it remained mostly unseen in public until 2015, when she provided it to Catherine, who has since worn it to several significant events. So we have the same woman, the same red carpet, and a gap of just 3 years. On one side, £17.99 Zara earrings. On the other, historic Cartier diamonds and an Art Deco royal treasure. What is this? Is it simply a whim of fashion, or is it a carefully calibrated strategy that we are only just beginning to understand? Such a striking contrast in her choices naturally leads to a bit of a debate among royal watchers. Not everyone is entirely thrilled with how the Princess of Wales manages her access to the royal vaults. In April 2023, The respected journalist and author of The Royal Jewels, Susie Menkes, shared her rather candid thoughts on her podcast, If Jewels Could Talk. She actually described Catherine's attitude towards jewelry as a bit of a disappointment. According to Menkes, Catherine seems to put on major, historically significant jewels only when it is absolutely necessary. She mentioned that she simply doesn't see the same visible joy and enthusiasm in wearing grand pieces that she observes, for instance, in Queen Camilla. Now, to be fair, Menkes honestly admitted that her mental picture of Catherine actively not wanting to wear jewelry was just her own imagination, not any kind of insider palace information. She also pointed out in that very same conversation that the modern royal lifestyle has become significantly less formal. Massive, sparkling treasures would be completely inappropriate for ordinary modern life, and some pieces from the royal collection are genuinely difficult to wear today. Still, her critique set off quite a discussion about what royal glamour should look like in the 21st century. I have to confess, as a true lover of royal jewelry, there is a small part of me that completely understands that sentiment. I would love nothing more than to see historical earrings, brooches, and beautiful diamond bracelets brought out of the vaults a little more often for her regular engagements. It is always a thrill to see history brought to life. But let's face the truth. When we step away from the grand state banquets and look at the daily calendar of a modern working royal, a completely different picture emerges. This is where her everyday, practical jewelry collection comes in, and it tells a fascinating story on its own. Take the accessible British brand Accessorize, for instance. Dedicated style researchers have identified no fewer than 7 different pairs of their earrings worn publicly by Catherine over the years. We are talking about the eclectic gem statement long drops, the mini hammered door knocker hoops, the polypetal earrings, and the pearl and disc hoops. These are not random, one-off purchases made just to generate a relatable newspaper headline. They are a staple of her working wardrobe. Just look at the simple filigree short drop earrings, which retailed for an incredibly modest £5. Featuring a delicate openwork pattern and a gently shaped edge, she wore them time and time again. We saw them at the Back to Nature Festival in September 2019, at the Sunshine House, during the Royal Tour of Pakistan that October, and for visits to early years centers in early 2020. Another favorite is the Twisted Circle drop earrings, also priced at just £5. Made of brass and consisting of 2 textured, interlocking rings, she debuted them during a visit to Ireland in March 2020. By the end of 2022, she had worn this specific pair on at least 7 different public engagements. It's easy to expect royal heirlooms, but when you look at her actual day-to-day schedule, this approach makes perfect sense. If you are sitting on the floor at a children's nursery, attending a sports workshop, or walking through a nature reserve, wearing heavy historical stones wouldn't just be impractical, it would look completely absurd. Instead, she has thoughtfully curated a reliable, lightweight wardrobe of modern pieces. They perfectly complete her outfits without ever threatening to overshadow the people she is meeting or the cause she is there to support. While the palace never gives official explanations for her style choices, the sheer repetition of these £5 earrings shows they are simply a part of a working uniform for a modern princess. There are moments, however, when her choice of affordable jewelry goes far beyond simple practicality. Sometimes, an inexpensive piece possesses a quiet power that a historical diamond simply cannot match. In these instances, the price tag becomes completely irrelevant, and the jewelry serves as a gesture of respect, diplomacy, or deep human connection. During her royal tour of Pakistan in the autumn of 2019, Catherine made a very deliberate choice to highlight local design. Even before leaving London, she attended an event at the Aga Khan Center wearing green ceramic drops by the Pakistani brand Zeen, which cost around $8. Then, upon arriving in Pakistan, she stepped out wearing a different pair from the same brand, the beaded chandelier model, priced at just $10. She continued to wear them for daytime engagements, including a visit to a school in Islamabad and the Margalla Hills National Park. While the palace didn't explicitly issue a statement about a diplomatic message, The perfect alignment between the host country and the origin of her jewelry was impossible to miss. We saw an even more intricate connection a few years later. On June 22, 2022, Catherine attended the unveiling of the National Windrush Monument at Waterloo Station in London. For such an important historical tribute, she chose the Florence earrings by the London-based brand Chalk. These beautiful walnut and acrylic drops, retailing for about £70, were created by Malaika Carr, an architect and designer whose own father and grandparents belonged to the Windrush generation. If you look closely, their shape is actually inspired by the ornate details and geometry found within the ceiling of the main stage auditorium at the Royal Opera House. The fact that Catherine chose a piece designed by a woman whose family history is directly tied to the Windrush generation shows an incredible level of thoughtfulness. She didn't just wear them once for a thematic appearance either. She brought them out again in early 2023 for the launch of her early childhood campaign. Yet, of all the affordable pieces in her collection, there is one pair that carries a weight heavier than any precious gem. In June 2023, while visiting the Maidenhead Rugby Club, Catherine met a woman named Sarah Renton. Sarah was mourning the loss of her 17-year-old daughter, Izzy Phipps, who had tragically passed away from suicide just weeks earlier. During this emotional meeting, Sarah gave Catherine a pair of gold-plated star earrings. They were the Izzy Star earrings, created by Izzy's cousin, the founder of the brand Earsass, to honor her memory. Priced at £25.50, a portion of the proceeds from every pair went to Brave Mind, a charity supporting mental health through sports communities. Catherine accepted the gift. Then, on October 10th, World Mental Health Day, she wore those very stars. 2 days later, she wore them again to a sports aid workshop focused on athletes' psychological well-being. You realize in that moment that absolutely no centuries-old royal heirloom, no matter how flawless, could ever convey the profound human support expressed by those small, gold-plated stars. She wore a grieving family's tribute and gave their cause a global platform. The jewelry spoke entirely for itself. While wearing accessible earrings to a community sports visit makes complete practical sense, stepping into the realm of solemn national ceremonies is an entirely different matter. This brings us to what I honestly consider to be her most fascinating and daring styling technique, the physical blending of modern faux jewelry with priceless royal heirlooms. To see exactly how she does this, we need to look at January 27, 2025. Catherine and Prince William attended a deeply moving ceremony in London, marking Holocaust Memorial Day and the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau. It was also a highly significant day for the couple personally, as it was their first joint public engagement since Catherine shared the wonderful news of her remission earlier that month. For such a profound occasion, Catherine debuted a striking 5-strand pearl collar. At first glance, looking at the elegant way it sat on her neckline, you might easily assume it was a long-forgotten treasure from the royal vaults. In reality, it was a piece of costume jewelry. Specifically, it was a 1980s vintage necklace from the brand Susan Kaplan, made of faux pearls of increasing size on a rhodium-plated base, complete with a clasp adorned with Swarovski crystals. It retails for about £275. The story behind it adds another layer of meaning. Susan Kaplan is a Jewish family brand. The founder noted that the necklace was purchased directly from their website rather than being a promotional loan. She felt incredibly honored, interpreting the princess's choice as a quiet gesture of support for a Jewish business on a day dedicated to Holocaust remembrance. The palace, as is their tradition, did not issue any statements explaining the outfit, letting the choice stand on its own. Now pause for just a moment. A future queen wearing a faux pearl necklace to a highly visible, solemn royal event is an intriguing choice on its own. But do you know what she decided to wear right alongside it? She didn't wear this 275-pound vintage find instead of royal heirlooms. She wore it directly with them. Framing her face that morning were the Bahrain pearl drop earrings. Let's zoom in on those for a second, because their history is remarkable. They were crafted from a wedding gift of 7 pearls still in their shell, presented to Princess Elizabeth in 1947 by the ruler of Bahrain. The earrings feature round diamond studs, a classic late 1940s arrangement of round and baguette-cut diamonds, and those exquisite natural pearl drops. Queen Elizabeth II wore them in her early years of marriage. Princess Diana wore them to a banquet at Hampton Court in 1982, and Catherine has been their primary wearer since 2016. And if we look closely at her wrist that day, there was another piece of history. Princess Diana's 3-strand pearl bracelet. Designed by Nigel Milne, originally to raise funds for the charity Birthright, it is the exact bracelet Diana famously wore with her iconic Elvis dress in Hong Kong in 1989. When you really look at the whole outfit together, it's such a clever mix. You have this faux pearl collar resting just inches away from the historic, natural Bahrain pearls of Queen Elizabeth II. And then you have Diana's pearls on her wrist. I just love how she put this together. The faux pearls aren't trying to deceive anyone or pass as priceless heirlooms. She just confidently wears them side by side with the real thing. It really proves that for Catherine, value isn't just about carats or price tags. That January morning wasn't just a one-off choice for the faux pearl collar. It actually became a real staple in her wardrobe. She started bringing it out for events where you'd normally expect to see the heavy historical gems. In May 2025, she wore the 275-pound Susan Kaplan piece to the VE Day 80th anniversary concert. She paired it beautifully with a white self-portrait dress and vintage pearl cluster earrings from the exact same brand. Just a month later, she wore it again, this time to the Order of the Garter service at Windsor. Mind you, that is one of the most formal and traditional events on the entire royal calendar. By the time the Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey rolled around in March 2026, the necklace was back. Once again, Catherine styled the artificial pearls with genuine royal history, wearing them alongside the Queen's Bahrain pearl drop earrings. This is exactly where some royal watchers began to draw a line. While many praised her sustainable and modern approach, others were distinctly less impressed. Under an article on the popular style blog, What Kate Wore, one reader left a very pointed comment. "Real pearls, please!" Another commenter insisted that Catherine surely had access to Queen Elizabeth II's genuine 3-strand pearl necklaces and should be wearing those instead. It is a completely fair question to ask, isn't it? If you have the keys to the most famous jewelry vaults in the world, why choose a vintage imitation? We know for an absolute fact she can wear the late Queen's genuine pearls. The royal collection houses the spectacular 4-strand Japanese pearl choker, a piece with a diamond clasp that Catherine has worn gracefully for deeply solemn occasions like the state funerals of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth II, but also for other highly significant events, such as the National Service of Thanksgiving at St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh in July 2023. She also has access to Queen Elizabeth's classic 3-strand pearl necklaces, which drape a bit more loosely, and which Catherine wore for the events commemorating the centenary of the late Queen's birth. So why, on so many occasions, does she bypass the priceless vaults and reach for the 275-pound faux pearl collar? Honestly, I think she just really loves how it looks. When you look at the design, the Susan Kaplan collar offers something stylistically unique in her jewelry box. It is a perfect middle ground. It isn't quite as tight as the Gerard 4-strand Japanese choker, but it is more structured and sits higher on the collarbone than the Queen's classic draped 3-strand necklaces. With its 5 strands, it provides a substantial, elegant presence that beautifully frames her neckline and perfectly complements the tailored coat dresses she so often wears. Sometimes, you just find a piece of jewelry that sits perfectly on your neckline. It makes you feel elegant, confident, and honestly, that is more than enough reason to wear it over and over again. It's easy to look at her choices today and think this is all some new strategy, mixing designer outfits with high-street accessories just to look a bit more grounded and relatable in the current economy. But she didn't just start doing this. She's actually been playing by her own jewelry rules for well over a decade. Let's go back for a moment to December 5th, 2013. The setting was the glittering London red carpet for the royal premiere of the film Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. Catherine stepped out looking absolutely radiant in a beautiful cream evening gown by the designer Roland Mouret. It was an incredibly elegant, structured dress, one she was actually recycling, having first worn it the previous year. When a royal woman wears a high-end designer gown on a major red carpet, the public naturally expects to see a serious piece of jewelry to match. That is the traditional royal formula. You would expect a heavy diamond pendant, perhaps a historic sapphire necklace from the family vaults, resting perfectly on the neckline of that dress. Instead, Catherine chose something completely unexpected. Right where the world anticipated priceless gemstones, she wore the Zara sparkly crystal bead necklace. It was a bold, chunky statement piece made of several rows of large faceted glass elements set in base metal. The price? A mere £19.99. Interestingly, as eagle-eyed fashion watchers noted, she decided to skip earrings altogether that evening. While we can never be entirely sure of her styling secrets, it certainly looked like she wanted to let that glass high street necklace take center stage without any competition. The evening itself ended up carrying an unexpected and immense historical weight, as the tragic news of Nelson Mandela's passing was announced to the audience right at the very end of the screening. I'm actually really curious, do any of you remember this specific appearance from back in 2013? What did you think of this look? Were you pleasantly surprised to see a Zara necklace, or were you expecting her to bring out some serious royal heirlooms for a major premiere like this? If you really want to see how she pulls off this incredible balancing act, you just need to look at one specific day on her calendar. Honestly, it perfectly sums up her whole approach. It shows exactly how she handles the heavy expectations of being a future queen while still just being herself. The date was December 3rd, 2025. President Frank-Walter Steinmeier of Germany and his wife Elke Budenbender had arrived in the UK for a state visit, and the opening day's events were set against the grand, historic backdrop of Windsor Castle. During the crisp daytime arrival and the official welcoming moments, Catherine looked flawlessly polished. She stepped out in a beautifully tailored blue Alexander McQueen coat, and pinned carefully to her outerwear was a piece of profound dynastic history, the Prince of Wales' feathers brooch. It is a stunning, traditional heirloom that dates all the way back to Queen Alexandra, intrinsically linked to the women who carry the title of Princess of Wales. Yet, as the royals and their guests moved indoors out of the winter chill to view a special exhibition of German-related artifacts from the royal collection, Catherine removed her coat to reveal a smart Burberry dress beneath. She hadn't just taken off her coat, she had specifically added a piece of jewelry to complete her indoor look. There, resting perfectly at her neckline, was the vintage 5-strand Susan Kaplan faux pearl collar. In a move that we now know as her signature, she paired those 275-pound artificial pearls with Princess Diana's magnificent cabochon sapphire drop earrings. This daytime combination is so beautifully telling. It is incredibly elegant, delicate, and refined, but there is absolutely no flashy, ostentatious glitter. When hosting a morning viewing of historical artifacts, she chose an aesthetic of quiet respect. But a few hours later, the sun set over Windsor Castle, the doors to the grand dining hall opened for the evening state banquet, and the rules of daytime restraint completely vanished. When Catherine appeared at the banquet, she wasn't just wearing another beautiful tiara. She was wearing the Oriental circlet. This piece, sometimes known as the Indian circlet, is nothing short of a colossal Victorian masterpiece. It was commissioned in 1853 by Prince Albert for his wife, Queen Victoria. Prince Albert was absolutely captivated by the Indian jewels displayed at the Great Exhibition of 1851, and he personally helped design this piece with sweeping Mughal arches and delicate lotus flowers. Originally, it was set with diamonds and opals, but Queen Alexandra later had the opals replaced with vivid Burmese rubies, creating the striking red and white contrast we see today. Queen Victoria loved it so much that she officially designated it an heirloom of the crown, meaning it was specifically meant to pass directly from monarch to monarch. It eventually became one of the absolute favorite signature pieces of the Queen Mother. Yet, during her remarkable 70-year reign, Queen Elizabeth II was photographed wearing it in public only a single time, at a banquet in Malta in 2005. For 20 long years, this spectacular, historic treasure rested entirely out of sight in the royal vaults. And then, Catherine brought it back to the light. It was her 5th different tiara since marrying into the family, and she paired its magnificent ruby and diamond arches with a delicate pair of diamond chandelier earrings that Queen Elizabeth II had loaned to her shortly after her wedding in 2011. Just take a moment to appreciate the sheer scale of that stylistic shift. Within the span of a single day, within the very same castle walls, we saw 2 completely different expressions of the Princess of Wales. In the morning, she was the modern, accessible diplomat, gracefully conducting daytime duties in vintage faux pearls. By evening, she was the breathtaking embodiment of centuries of British history, carrying the weight and the fire of Queen Victoria's rubies. So, when we look back at all these carefully made choices, we finally return to that initial debate. Why exactly does she do this? Some observers suggest it is a nod to the current economic climate, while others think it is simply a push for sustainable fashion. But I think the truth is much deeper and far more interesting. For Catherine, affordable high street earrings and royal diamonds are not in competition with one another. They are simply different tools meant for entirely different jobs. I often find myself thinking about how incredibly wise this approach is. She has learned to strictly separate the occasions when the centuries-old dynasty needs to speak from the moments when a piece of jewelry should support the living, breathing person standing right in front of her. When she wears a colossal Victorian masterpiece, she is upholding the grandeur and history of the monarchy for a state occasion. But when she chooses a 25-pound pair of gold-plated stars given to her by a grieving mother, or 5-pound high street hoops for a nursery visit, she is connecting on a purely human level. Her jewelry box isn't just a collection of accessories. It is a beautifully calibrated language of empathy and respect. And this brings us right back to where we started. On one BAFTA red carpet, a pair of 17-pound Zara earrings can take center stage, and on another, the dazzling Cartier diamonds of a queen can leave us absolutely breathless. Yes, a vintage faux pearl necklace can sit beautifully and unapologetically right next to the historic natural Bahrain pearls of Queen Elizabeth II. The modern monarchy has undoubtedly changed, but rather than being constrained by the heavy expectations of the past, Catherine has gracefully created her very own set of rules. She has proven to the world that the dignity of a future queen is measured not just by the carat weight of her diamonds, but by the quiet, thoughtful meaning placed into every single appearance. If you enjoyed this journey through the jewelry boxes of the Princess of Wales, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. I would be absolutely thrilled to read your thoughts in the comments. What do you make of Catherine's approach to jewelry? Do you appreciate this thoughtful restraint? Or do you find yourself hoping to see more of those grand, historical royal treasures in her regular rotation? Thank you so much for watching and for sharing this time with me. After all, jewels may be silent, but their stories never are, as long as we continue to tell them.